And if you would volunteer, I don't want to embarrass anyone, so I'm not going to ask you to step up to this, but think of yourself. Self-awareness, knowing one's limit. Knowing what you don't like to experience. Knowing what you like to experience. Self-management. Now we get to the control. If you know you don't like A, then don't do it. Don't go there, as a kind of slang expression would say. Self-awareness is sensing and understanding others' emotions so that you know whether the person is going to react in a way that is going to cause some difficulties. And then in relationship management, Chris, just because you publicly commented, and we will not send this videotape to your girlfriend, building relationships and managing the conflict is almost inevitable in between two people. How do you do it? A highly emotional person might react to a conflict by screaming. Does that sound constructive? No. A person who is afraid of the engagement from a conflict might totally withdraw and not face the feelings that the person really has that are coming forward at that particular moment. Now, I offer that section to you it is up to date, I know that, and it's a fairly important part of human life, and it's something about which we know quite a bit now. So then let's go. Well, let me have you react to this, if you are willing to. Does it strike home at all, or is it just me blowing off stuff? It's real. It's absolutely real. I was going to use a metaphor, but I'll not. Before I go to the big 5 personality dimensions, and I'll put that, I was just going to put that on camera so you get ready, Aaron, so you can come back to me. On page 111, the text talks about different personality types, and one is locus of control, another is a Machiavellian personality, which I will leave to the text to describe. But what I particularly want to know about from all of you is the difference between a type A and a type B personality. Reflect on yourselves, each of you, please, with the following description. And you have used the phrase type A, I am sure, in casual conversation. Just saying a friend is behaving like a type A or something of that sort, and you probably also know something about it. A type A personality focuses excessively on achievement, can quickly become hostile, has a keen sense of time urgency, and is aggressive. Now, a type A, and let's see if you have ever met one, will have a watch, and we'll check it regularly. Some type A personalities that I've met as students have said, I have a clock in every room. Okay? Wonderful. I'm glad you have a clock in every room. Usually on the edge. And the type B is the opposite. And the type B, I don't even have a watch. The last watch I had, I don't even know what it was. It might have been a Mickey Mouse watch, and it stopped running, so I threw it away. And yes, I will admit that I'll glance occasionally at the computer because it has a clock on it. And I have a clock on my desk in my office because I have to get to class on time. But pretty much, I have a biological clock. I pretty much know what time it is. But can you identify with type A? Are any of you willing to admit that you are a type A personality? You are?
I will. I'm quite type A.
Well, and looking at you sitting there, you look quite calm.
No, I can leave my house 6 minutes before class and be in my seat on time. Dinner's on the table right at 6 o'clock. I'm 5 minutes before it's time for all the kids to leave for school. I'm like, we have 5 minutes left. Do you have your lunch? Are you dressed? Do you have socks and shoes? Have you brushed your teeth? Is your bed made? Is your laundry put? There's a litany of lists and timelines, and yes, terribly type A.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Not for my family.
Wonderful revelation, and the behaviors that you describe are so characteristic of the Type A personality. You know that you'd like to have dinner at 6, and at my house, pretty much it's going to be somewhere between 6 and 7. No, look at her shaking her head. She can't identify with that. Thank you so much for your openness. How about in here? Come out of the closet. You're a Type A.
I would say I'm not quite like as extreme a case, but like I'm always very like I have my day very planned out. Before I get up, I can tell you exactly where I'm going to be pretty much at any points in the day. Like you said about the clock, I check my phone probably every 5 minutes to see what time it is, you know? Like it's just kind of ingrained with me.
Okay. Now you said that with a little bit of embarrassment.
Well, kind of, because I don't consider myself to be like aggressive, you know? Like
Okay.
I don't consider myself to fit in with everything. Because although I feel like I always have to be doing something constructive, I don't consider myself aggressive or really like over extroverted.
Okay, that's fine.
I was gonna say when it comes to like business and my work, I would say I'm probably Type A. Like if I have you have to meet with someone or have a deadline or something, and I'm making sure everything's right on time for it. But in my everyday life, I don't really care as much. But when it comes to work, I'm like, I really care about deadlines and all those kind of things like that.
It's interesting the way you put it, because we know from other lines of research, and it's not necessarily in the textbook, and it's part of the type of research I did many years ago, that we can behave in different ways in different arenas of our life. And we used to divide it simply into the work and the non-work side to make it simple, but you have a work role and it requires that you produce and behave in a certain way according to the goals that you're trying to reach. And then on the non-work side, with family, with your girlfriend, and relationships, there you may behave in a different way. So we could see ourselves as somewhat different in different roles. Now, Type A, are you concerned about time?
Yeah, I've relaxed a lot, I think, because my girlfriend's kind of a Type B person, so I've kind of had to really, take a look at myself and not be so uptight about that. But like you were saying that when you went to Brazil, people have a habit of being late. Well, Peru's the same way. My brother married a Peruvian girl, and it's like when they say they're going to be there at a certain time, that could be any time in the next 12 hours, and just people like not being punctual or something, drives me nuts.
Yeah, so that's a cultural difference, but then when you move into it from outside the culture and carry with you the Type A characteristics, you have trouble responding to it.
Yeah, well, I've been like, I'm really conscious of time and like this has got to get done and this has got to get done, and I'm constantly like thinking about things.
Is anybody in the room that perceive himself or herself as a true Type B?
Yeah,
Okay.
is that what is it?
Well, it tends not to have the aggressive part to it. There isn't a sense of time urgency. Likely not become hostile. And I'm paraphrasing it. Type Bs typically have high self-esteem, and sometimes the Type A does not. And that's why they're so achievement-oriented, because they want to prove to themselves that they're okay. So you get a mixture of these things coming together. And careful, don't want you to do a social desirability trip on this stuff, of saying, oh, it sounds better to be a Type B than a Type A. Sorry, whoever you are, when you get to be about 30 to 35, we pretty much got you nailed down. Okay? And I know there's a few in here that are of that age or a little bit older, and looking at the sites and so on, we have some, and I have the demographics, and some of you are in your 20s, so you got a way to go, and you continue to mature. All right, so I want to work up to this extraordinary cinematic moment. Who framed Roger Rabbit? And I didn't know whether you're shaking your head. You just can't believe I'm going to use a scene from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. No, this one right here. But let's take a look at some of the big 5 personality dimensions, because I'm going to ask you to apply these to Roger in this dramatic moment in his development. And you've used some of these terms yourself, like extroversion versus introversion. It's easy to see the difference there. And these are also on page 111 of the text. And an extrovert is sociable and talkative on the high side. The low side, which is an introvert, reserved, and I say introverted there. They do not typically have a wide circle of friends, and they're often rather quiet. Doesn't mean they do not talk and do not act. They're just not, at the extreme, you could say the extrovert is in your face, and the introvert is much more calm and quiet. Emotional stability, we distinguish between high and low. When it's high, the person is relaxed and calm. When it's low, worried and depressed. The person with low emotional stability feels unstable when challenged. If you, in the college environment, when you get your grades and your scores, the person can become quite irritated. In fact, that's not a reason. It's privacy concerns. We used to post grades and scores publicly years ago, by Social Security number. By law, we're not allowed to do that anymore. Yes, I can put them into Vista because you are the only one who can see yours, and nobody can see your particular score. So what's interesting here, I'm speculating, that you see your score and you start to throw things at the computer. You know, you say, Champoux! I just made that, I just thought of that. Just can see it acting out. Agreeableness, high and low, high, cooperative and tolerant, low, rude and cold. And you've undoubtedly met people like this. Conscientiousness. Now, by Big 5, we mean a set of stable personality dimensions that we've extracted from many studies done with thousands of people. So at least within the Western world, and this is primarily within, the research is primarily in the US and Europe, and so it is a bit constrained by cultural constraints. If, a person who is low in conscientiousness is sloppy and careless, and a person who's openness to experience, curious and intelligent versus simple and conventional. Now remember last week I talked to you about the summary from the diversity dimension, not diversity dimensions, but the demographic profile exercise. And I was so taken by how many countries you all had visited. And that's openness to experience, of being willing to go and experience a foreign culture. So let's try your knowledge of these with this film scene from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Now this is a mixture of live action and animation that was actually, it's a 1988 film, so they were quite challenged. And, pardon? Page. Oh, page, yes, 88, sorry, page 88. The producers and the director and so on were quite challenged in doing this, because in this scene I'm going to show you, you will see Eddie Valiant, who was a private detective, played by Bob Hoskins, who is a human, who will also interact with Roger Rabbit, who is voiced by Charles Fleischer. Now, Charles Fleischer's voice is what Roger Rabbit has, and when Bob Hoskins was acting, and you see him touching Roger, Roger was not there. But he had to act as if Roger was there, and then they blended it all together. So this scene is somewhat early in the film, in the first little bit more than a half hour. Eddie Valiant enters his office and closes his door. I cued the tape, it depends on where it settled. And we're going to see an interaction between Eddie Valiant and Roger. And what I want you to do is think of the Big 5 personality dimensions on page 111 and assess Roger's personality. Which of these dimensions best characterize Roger Rabbit?